Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sweet Bats, and today I'll be using this Katrine Deneuve doll to make one of my favorite feline celebrities, Waffles. Her hair isn't in the best shape, so this Katrine in particular ended up as a great candidate for a new hairstyle and face. This is also the first reboot doll I've worked on, and it looks like her face mold is the same as the pre-boot dolls, just with a different body. This was another one of the dolls I had wiped and prepared in an effort to use up all my Mr. Super Clear before my international move, but it ended up being a waste since her face got super dirty again, and I'm going to have to re-prep her. Also, I know Waffles is a boy, but Monster High wasn't the greatest about male dolls, so I'm working with what I got. I usually put the hair in a ponytail, even if I'm not keeping it, so that cleanup is easier, but the hair is short already and working around ears would just be super inconvenient, so I'm just laying down a cloth to catch all the cut hairs. Take a sharp pair of scissors and cut as close to the scalp as possible, taking extra care around the ears. Once that's done, I remove the head from the body, set down a cloth to catch the mess, then scrape at the inside of the head with my needle nose pliers and forceps to clean it out. This time, I didn't use a heat source to remove the head, and therefore the glue didn't soften and it took much more effort to remove the hair plugs. I typically use a hairdryer to soften the vinyl, but you can use hot water instead. Just be careful not to burn yourself. I guess I put too much pressure around the part and accidentally reshaped the head? I've never had that happen before. I think this happened due to not heating up the head at all, but I had these large thin sheets of glue just stuck to the inside of the head and they were a huge pain to remove. I should probably start cutting open the head like the other doll artists do. Now that the head's all clean, I go to work on the ears. Since Waffles is a Scottish fold, these ears won't exactly work as is. I tried heating one up to see if I could bend the vinyl into the shape I wanted, but instead ended up melting it on accident. So I'm just going to cut the ears off entirely and reshape them. I wanted to leave a bit of the base of the original ear to build off of instead of cutting it flush to the scalp, and ended up cutting too far into the vinyl. Though the clay will likely cover it up and the small hole is no issue, I decided to patch up the slice beforehand with some liquid fusion to prevent any potential issues down the line. I used 20 gauge wire to make the new shape of the ears by stabbing it directly into the head where the ear base already is. And here's the completed wireframe of the ears. Waffles has very small ears, even for a Scottish fold, but I should have made these stick out of the head a bit further. Though the shape isn't perfect, the clay will be used to refine it and make them look overall better. I'll be using this Fimo air dry clay to form the ears directly onto the wireframe. This was my first time working with clay on a doll, and it definitely shows. I should have had water on hand to help smooth everything out before it dried too much, but overall I'm generally happy with how these turned out, especially with the inside of the ears and how they transitioned into the vinyl. It's not exactly seamless, but hopefully with a bit more practice, my next clay modified doll will be way better. Once I'm relatively satisfied with the shape, I let it dry for 24 hours before sanding down all my fingerprints and trying to make it a bit smoother. And here it is all smoothed down. There's a bit of wire visible, but hopefully the paint will cover it. And unfortunately, the insides of the ears didn't end up as nice as I initially thought. Luckily, they'll be pretty covered, so it hopefully shouldn't be an issue. I made a wig cap prior to adding the ears, with plans to cut out holes in the proper shape once they're all formed. This is where the ear base comes in handy as a nice guide, since I didn't have to put any glue on it and it was much softer. While I knew that the ears would add some bulk to the head, I didn't take into account that it would expand sideways, making the wig cap too small. Though I'm hoping with some properly cut ear holes and light squeezing of the cap, I'll be able to get it to fit right. I take my X-Acto knife and start cutting into the soft, non-glued fabric of the wig cap. Be sure to always be careful with sharp objects. Once the holes are wide enough, I put the wig cap on and mark areas that need a little bit more trimmed off in order to both fit better and allow the wig to be removed a bit easier. Once the hair is glued on, the wig won't be as flexible, and I can't squeeze the head itself once the face-up is done, so I have to make sure to get it right ahead of time. I ended up being a little too rough with it and accidentally broke the ear, so I patched it up with a bit more liquid fusion and did so in probably the dumbest way possible. Remember what I said earlier about sharp objects? Do as I say, not as I do. It did work rather well though, and I didn't get hurt, but it's probably best not to test my luck with that again. I used Luna as a mannequin, since she already had no ears, and her head was small enough to put the wig cap on. The heads of my Create a Monster dolls were too big, and while slightly inconvenient, I appreciate that it shows the amount of variety in each Monster High doll, instead of just having cookie cutter dolls with different makeup or skin colors but all on the same base. I really love the uniqueness of Monster High dolls, can you tell? I couldn't find a perfect color, so I made a blend of these two acrylic yarns for the hair wefts, and I think they turned out pretty nice. Off camera, I made a bunch of short wefts, and then referred back to Mozziquito's wig tutorials, specifically the basic wig with fringe, which I'll link to in the description below. I wanted to keep the soft, innocent, and fluffy look that Waffles has, so I thought bangs and a short bob style would be really cute on this doll. Please be sure to watch Mozziquito's video for an in-depth tutorial on how to do this. Once I've got most of the wefts done, I place some small wefts through the ear holes and glue them to the inside of the wig. This makes for a more natural appearance coming out of the head and covers up the edges of the ear holes. Once all the edges are covered on both sides and the hair has been tamed, it's time to actually cut the hair. It's definitely best to do this as you go instead of cutting all the layers at once, but live and learn. I first section off where I want the bangs and cut that straight across, intentionally longer than I want, so I can go back in and refine it with scissors and brow razors and make it look more natural. I got these brow razors in a large pack from, I'm pretty sure it was Ross, and these honestly aren't that great. I grabbed another type that do seem to work better after I finish this doll, and I do hope to show those in a later video. But if you're looking to buy brow razors, buy the larger ones that fold instead of these tiny ones. It was at this point I found that the hair was pretty thick around the ears, hence my earlier statement that I should have made the ears protrude a bit more. So I do go through there and try and thin it down a bit to make the ears slightly more visible. I got some thinning shears at Petco, and they actually work surprisingly well on the yarn hair. Just be sure to provide enough tension and you can get some really nice layers. And here's the wig all done. I think it turned out really cute. I'm really happy with it. Now that the wig's done, I carefully remove it and move on to painting the ears. I also make sure to paint the surrounding scalp, in case any shows through the wig. With that out of the way, I can prime the doll with a few layers of Mr. Super Clear and start working on the face-up, my favorite part. Keeping with the innocent and cute look, I give the doll a wide-eyed expression. This is also my first time working on a white doll, which comes with its own challenges. Some dark colors would show up too dark and be hard to pull back, and even some light colors, but some of the lighter colors, especially the pastels, showed up absolutely beautifully. I keep my Faber-Castell eraser pencil on hand to clean up any lines I'm not happy with, and honestly, I recommend grabbing a set of these. They're so useful. I got mine at Joann, but you can probably get them at any other hobby shop, and of course you can buy anything on Amazon. I still wanted to keep a few feline aspects on the doll, so I gave her a little pink cat nose, but I did stop short of adding whiskers. I fill in the eyes with a kind of orangish brown color, doing my best to match Waffle's colors. Moving on to pastels, I grab a light pink and carefully blush the face, making sure not to be too heavy-handed. I know that MSC will dull the pastels a bit, but given that it's a pure white base, I'm being extra careful. Then, I use some pastels on the lips, quickly realizing I didn't clean my brush from the last doll I made, so I erase it all with the kneaded eraser and try again with a clean brush. Once I'm happy with the lips, I draw on the brows with pastels and shape them to my liking with the kneaded eraser. Again, I want the doll to have an innocent expression, so I went for slightly concerned brows, which cats seem to naturally have when looking up. I go ahead and build up colors before adding in pupils. Once I'm happy with those, I come in with pencils and go add individual hairs to the brows. I decided I wanted her to have a slightly open mouth, so I lightly wet a small brush and pull color directly from the pencil. Once this is done, the first layer is complete, and I go ahead and seal it with Mr. Super Clear. Blank Space Dolls has been recommending these highly, and when I saw them at Joann, I had to grab a pack and give them a try for myself. Even on a white doll, I could immediately tell they were better than the watercolor pencil I was using. This gets used for the whites of the eyes, and you can see how much brighter they are than the rest of the white skin. I can already imagine the color payoff on non-white dolls. I'm so excited for my next custom using these. On this layer, I also decide to draw cat pupils instead of normal circles, and I've extended the nose slightly to make it even more cat-like. After sharpening my pencil, it's time to add the eyelashes, obscuring basically the entire process from the camera. The lower lashes ended up a bit thicker than I intended, so I'll need to practice my light strokes before doing another face-up. Then it's just repeating the process of building up colors until I'm satisfied with the color payoff, adding light eyeshadow, painting catch lights on the eyes, and adding white acrylic to the ears. A lot of this occurred in another layer that I don't have any footage of since I blocked the camera with my head the whole time. Once I'm done with that, I seal her with more Mr. Super Clear and add gloss to the eyes. The Katrine tail I have was modified by the previous owner, and you can kind of see where it was cut and re-glued, but I'm fine with the new shape. I will, however, be cutting off the curled tip. Then I make some short, unstraightened wefts and wrap them around the tail to mimic Waffles' floofy Scottish fold tail. Here's the finished tail, and you can see where I glued non-wefted yarn to attempt to make the base as seamless as possible. I'm not confident in my sewing ability, so off camera I make a simple dress with pattern bought from DG Requiem, along with some bloomers to give it volume. The pattern link is in the description box below. With that done, it's time to assemble the final doll. This doll was a lot of experimentation, and overall, I'm pretty pleased with how she came out, though I can certainly see areas where I can improve. I had a lot of fun making her, and I think she ended up really cute. Please also be sure to check out the inspiration for this, Waffles the Cat, by clicking the links in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you stick around for my next custom doll. Take care!